Your book deals with so many issues around this topic, and it says right in the title, or you said right in the title, that it's for a confused culture. So maybe two parts. Can you talk about your book, what it was that motivated you to write this? On your social media platform, you have a lot of conversations, shorter conversations about many of these topics, and I would encourage folks to follow you. I specifically follow you on Instagram and love your videos there. But can you talk about why you wrote the book, some of the things you cover in the book, why that's important, and then address maybe even why culture is so confused or, gets this so wrong so often?
Yeah, sure. Well, probably the biggest reason I wrote it is Scotty, Shauna, and Shane, my three kids.
Yeah.
My dad in the 80s, really in the early 90s, did what was called the Why Wait, which was one of the first sexual purity campaigns in the church. I grew up hearing this message. So when this opportunity came with Lifeway and Brahman Holman to produce this, I thought, you know what, here's a chance for me to give to another generation in the way very important ideas were given to me, and in particular, my own kids. So I broke up the book into three parts. The first third of the book is really stripping away faulty secular ideas that our kids have imbibed. And I'll tell you guys, I think our kids in our best homeschools, our best churches, our best Christian schools have imbibed far more secular ideas about identity, freedom, love than we even realize. So I got to spend a third of the book walking through, here's what biblical love is. Here's how identity is rooted. Here's what truth is in the nature of freedom. And then, of course, I define freedom as living in accordance with God's design for our life. The middle third of the book, it says, okay, what is God's design for sex, for singleness, and marriage? And I walk through the design for each of those, respond to three common myths about those. And then the last third of the book is where I walk through some of the, what you might call thorny issues today, like pornography, divorce, cohabitation, the LGBTQ conversation, sex abuse, etc. Once people understand faulty secular ideas, God's design, then we can make sense of those tougher issues. And frankly, when it's all said and done, I think our culture is confused about this because our culture has a different worldview and approach to reality. Either we have a man or human-centered approach, or we have a God-centered approach. You can't have both. And if we begin with what humans think is right, if we begin with what humans decide, you're going to come up with a very different result than if we begin with what Scripture teaches about God's character and the purposes for His design for us and His commands.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Sean, there's a lot more we could talk about here. You're on the road, and I appreciate you giving us some time to talk about even what we have. Hopefully we can have you back and maybe jump in a little bit deeper. But where can people find the book? Where can people follow you? Your YouTube channel's blowing up. It's awesome. Again, your social media is great. But where are some places you want to point people to?
Probably the simplest place is just seanmcdowell.org. And that's where I have a link to the YouTube channel, which you're right, it's blown up. I'm really just honored by people around the world, I think, are hungry for substantive conversations about real issues. So there's a link to the YouTube channel. I have a weekly blog that I do. We actually have a podcast that I co-host out of Biola. That's linked there. All the resources and the books are there. And then at the bottom, it links to my Instagram, Twitter, and believe it or not, I'm even on TikTok because that's a tool to reach this generation.
Do you dance, or is it more?
I've done a couple fun ones with my kids. Probably every week or two, I just do a goofy fun one. But really, they're just quick answers to tough questions that kids are asking me. Yeah,
very cool. Sean, really appreciate it. And man, safe travels, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Thanks for having me, guys. Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.